Everyone, and welcome to the season premiere of the Women of Influence Virtual Spotlight Event Series. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, ventureLAB, for bringing all of us together, and our official venue partner, Fairmont Royal York, where we are broadcasting out of tonight in the lovely renovated Royal York Suite. Over the last year, we have been working hard to find new ways to foster the kinds of connections made at our live events and continue to bring inspirational role models Women of Influence stage, which brings us to tonight. We have hundreds of women, men, and their families tuning in from across the country, so welcome. And we would like to take a moment to acknowledge that whatever land you are on is the traditional territory of many nations and is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. With that said, let's hear now from Marcia Macmillan, President and CEO of ventureLAB.
Thank you, Marcia, and good evening, and a warm welcome to everyone tuning in across the country. On behalf of ventureLAB, we are honored to be the presenting sponsor for the season premiere of the Women of Influence Spotlight Series. My name is Marcia Macmillan, and I am the President and CEO of ventureLAB, a leading innovation hub and the only global founder community for hardware, technology, and enterprise software startups in Canada. At ventureLAB, we are creating the next generation of tech titans who are born global, built to scale, and inclusive by design. Located at the heart of Ontario's innovation corridor in York Region, ventureLAB is part of one of the biggest and most diverse startup communities in Canada. Together with our community of innovators, industry leaders, and public sector partners, we enable technology startups to commercialize transformational products on a global scale from Canada. Our organization is built by entrepreneurs and leaders with decades of industry experience in building IP-rich startups, scale-ups, and global multinational companies. Our mission at ventureLAB is to grow globally competitive tech titans that build to scale in Canada for global markets. With an emphasis on IP-rich tech companies building breakthrough products that embed hardware technologies and scale-ready enterprise software, our community of global founders are creating solutions that will power our technologies of tomorrow, like artificial intelligence, clean energy, cybersecurity, and quantum computing. In fact, we are Canada's hardware hub, home to the Hardware Catalyst Initiative, Canada's only lab and incubator for hardware and semiconductor-focused solutions, where Canadian and global founders alike come to scale IP-rich semiconductor or related hardware-based products, from the hundreds of chips inside electric vehicles to the sensors embedded in advanced medical devices, to the most advanced electronics inside our mobile phones and powering 5G communications. Our industry-led team has enabled thousands of tech companies to scale, and our portfolio of companies generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue each year, have created over 4,000 jobs, and raised over $200 million in investment capital to continue to scale. We know that a thriving tech sector is an equitable one. At the beginning of 2020, we launched Tech Undivided, an initiative for female tech founders to grow and scale their companies. Our vision with Tech Undivided is to reduce unconscious bias and bridge the gender and diversity gaps by giving founders the strategic and tactical expertise to refine product market fit, amplify sales, and secure growth capital. With a gender-balanced strategic mentor network, a gender parity diverse team and board, we are leading by example through our performance-based culture and fundamentally changing language and perception to achieve real parity and remove barriers for tech founders to increase merit-based representation, improve access to capital for growth, and lead by example in what it really means to be an inclusive, diverse, and equitable tech ecosystem. At ventureLAB, diversity, equity, and inclusion is not just something that we believe in. It is ingrained in our values. Tonight, we will be hearing from 3 successful founders, all of whom are part of Tech Undivided. With unique programming focused on raising capital, refining talent, commercializing technology and IP, and customer acquisition, the program creates an ecosystem of resources and networking opportunities for founders to accelerate their business growth. Anu Bidani is the CEO of STEM Minds, a tech education program intended to arm kids with the science, technology, engineering, math, and soft skills they need to succeed in school. In just under 5 years, STEM Minds has reached 40,000 students and is on track to further expand throughout the US and India. Yvonne Lau is the founder of Retainify. In 2018, Retainify set out to create transparency between employees and their employers by launching a data-driven software that ultimately helps clients drive organizational growth. Fatima Kamatova is the co-founder and CEO of Veer AI, a software company that aims to help retail companies make data-driven decisions and target their marketing with actionable, tailored insights. Despite the challenges of COVID-19, Fatima has experienced remarkable growth in just under 2 years and is set to serve 100 clients by this summer. Let's get to know these visionary founders.
Thank you, Melissa. Hello, ladies. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I think we're going to have a great conversation. We've already been talking, just so everyone knows, for the last half hour or so. So we're done. I'm just kidding. You're all brilliant in your own way. Each of you have a fascinating story. You are, of course, all under the tech umbrella. Let's begin by talking about what made each of you decide to transition from the corporate world to pursue an entrepreneurial venture. There had to be an aha moment at some point. Yvonne, I'm going to start out with you. What gap did you see that you thought needed to be filled?
I think for me, I was in a constant struggle with trying to break through what we now call the glass or the glass or the concrete ceiling, and I feel like I was at the, I was in a leadership position, but I feel like I still have to constantly ask for permission or ask for opportunities to do new things. And then I was graduating from my MBA program, and I was using a school project as my business ideas, and it was just all the stars were aligned. I was able to graduate from my program, and then to be able to just walk out and say, you know what, I'm going to create an opportunity for myself.
And here you are.
Here I am.
And never looked back.
No.
Okay, Anu, what about you?
So I was in a corporate career at Scotiabank for 20 years. I joined the bank as a junior technology auditor. And my last 8 years were in the trade floor looking at technology transformation for foreign exchange and precious metals. So in 2015, the bank went through reorganization, and I was a crossroad about deciding, what the next phase of my life should look like. Should I go back to another corporate job, or should I go somewhere else? So I ended up having a lunch date with a very close friend of mine. Two moms, and over lunch we're talking about how frustrated we were that our kids weren't building any skills for the technology around us, the world around us. And my dear friend Laura, who has always been very supportive, said, Anu, you can do this. You can go solve this problem. And that was my kind of motivation to go say, okay, it's a personal problem for me because my kids aren't building the skills I want them to build. I've had a great successful career, and I know what skills they should be building from the lens of an employer and the lens of a parent. So being an analytical person, being in tech, you kind of have those foundational skills of problem solving, critical thinking. I went around doing my research, and lo and behold, it wasn't just my and Laura's problem. There were tons of statistics, reports out there highlighting that how kids felt. That there was a report from Deloitte that said 79% youth felt that they were not building skills in the school and had to go outside to build skills. World Economic Forum talks about 1 billion people being retrained by 2030. This problem was much bigger than me, my kids, and my community. So it felt like the problem was really big enough that if I could put all my skills of years of expertise I had built and channel it there, it would be a great experience. So that was kind of the motivation that I went into the entrepreneurial landscape. And I started my idea in a small Montessori school in the 2016 summer. And people loved what I had, so I said, okay, this is it. I need to do a little bit more work before I realize this is my passion, because I had spent all my career in financial services, and here I'm moving into an educational services vertical. So I actually took a co-working space out of a makerspace in a new market called New Make It. I got a little desk, started there. They gave me a little room where I could kind of run my programs. Within 3 months, I was sold out in all my programs I ran. So I knew I had a good product. Yeah. I was meeting the need, and I could use all my passion and energy from a personal lens as a parent, but also solve this for so many other parents who were feeling the same way as I did. And that's when my aha moment came. I actually put an offer in for a 3,500 square foot location, put a lease in there, and I have never looked back as I start and keep building this journey.
Congratulations. And I'm going to get to you, Fatima, but I'm wondering, do you get more satisfaction now than you did before in your corporate role?
I just love what I do. I feel like my calling was there, my purpose is there, and I feel so connected to what I'm doing that I wake up every morning with that sense of contentment. Wow. And happiness. That is not to say I wasn't happy in my corporate career. I had a great career. I truly enjoyed it. But the contentment that I have now, where I wake up every morning with a smile and never looking back, is just an amazing feeling to be in this stage of my life and feeling that the sense of presence and the sense of that being in that moment and truly enjoying it.
Okay, Fatima, what's your story? You're an AI, which I think kind of freaks some people out, but we're going to hear more about what you do.
I think AI does freak some people out. It makes sense. I think for me it's a little different. I feel like I know so many, both men and women, who when they started their companies and they started building something new, they had so many people who were pulling them back and saying, well, you have a stable career, you have a job, you have all of those things. I was born into the family where people just made things happen, and when they wanted to, they started companies and they started businesses, and sometimes multiple of them, and things like this. So when I decided to quit my job and I told my dad said, finally. And he was just like, yes. And I'm at that point working at one of the biggest, best funded AI startups in the country, and at the time it meant like probably everywhere else too. And I was just having like this career that I've built from like going from consulting and doing all of those work with like data-driven machine learning marketing initiatives, that data science marketing initiatives that I've been working on. And all of that sort of just fell into place that exact moment when I decided that, you know what, there is something that was missing in everything that I was doing. And I realized that that was because all of those projects and all of those clients that I've worked for were all like multi-million-dollar clients. A lot of them were billion-dollar clients, many Fortune 500 clients. And I just didn't want to service just them. I wanted to bring all of that knowledge and all of that expertise to companies that couldn't afford necessarily, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on AI investment or talent annually, like companies like Amazon, for example, do. And I wanted to be able to bring that power, because I do believe that knowing your data and understanding it and being able to drive insight from it is incredibly powerful to the companies that are smaller, to the smaller and medium-sized companies, to level that field between all of those large organizations and all of the small ones.
So tell us how it works. You were explaining it to me before we went live.
Yeah,
this is fascinating.
Thank you. So I think all of us shop online, especially now. We kind of have to. I mean, the stores just have reopened in Toronto, but a lot of people still don't go. And I like seeing some of the lines. Sometimes it scares me, and I would rather like buy something online. But all of us probably have that experience where, for example, you use Uber and you see how Uber gives you one discount, and someone who sits right next to you and getting the same ride from the same place somewhere else is getting a different pricing, and sometimes even a different discount as well. And you look at that, and some people always have their rides slightly cheaper. For some reason, amongst most of my friends, I was always one of those people. I think it's because if it weren't for the ride, most of the time I'd be like, whatever, I'll walk. I love walking anyway. So Uber sort of knew that. I think Uber's algorithms, as a result, assigned me as a person who potentially could become a more profitable customer, so they could keep giving me those discounts all the time, whereas someone who goes every day to work, commutes by taking the Uber, for example, as well, Uber would never give them a discount because they know that this customer will do it no matter what. They will keep going and they will keep using it because it's convenient, because it's part of their routine and it's part of their behavior now. One of the things that Amazon does, for example, as well, it looks at what you look at and provides you all of those recommendations because they want people to buy more. And they want people to buy more from Amazon because that makes it more convenient for the consumer. We want to bring that convenience to everyone and want to give that both understanding of the customer and being able to recommend something you know that that customer is likely to buy as well.
Okay, so that's how you work with retailers. Yvonne, tell us about Retainify. What are your core goals? What are you doing to make a difference?
Our ultimate goal is to make feedback less scary. So whenever you hear the word feedback and think about, when in a work setting or just in general, when someone say, I've got feedback for you,
we assume it's negative.
Yes, the assumption is always that it's negative, right? But if you look at all the studies and research, it's just that we're not doing it enough and make it like a routine, right? So if it becomes routine, it becomes less scary. And if you increase that frequency of feedback, right, you're practicing giving and receiving feedback. So, giving feedback is just as scary as receiving feedback, right? So how do we normalize that in the workplace? And then when you look at kind of like what can we do with feedback data? So if you think about, going into retailers and whatnot, you purchase either a product or service, right? And these companies, they will religiously send you information or send you a survey and say, how likely are you to recommend our services, to your friends and families, right? We don't do nearly enough with employees, and we don't do nearly enough with patients and residents in the senior care space, right? So there's ample opportunities for us to leverage feedback data. So kind of like, Fatima, what you were saying about using that and then turning it into insights and help organization really identify strengths within the organization, gaps, right? And then how do they prioritize based on needs to work on these items? Because you can't fix everything. There needs to be an algorithm, there needs to be, analytics, there needs to be ways for computers to be able to help, prioritize that for organizations, and then just make continuous improvement over time, right?
Why'd you call it Retainify?
So in the very beginning, going back to just kind of the story when we first started out, it was supposed to be a school project in my MBA program. So at that moment, I wasn't thinking, honestly. I knew I was looking for a new opportunity for myself when I feel like I hit kind of the glass in the concrete ceiling. But then as we go through this MBA project, and then you go through this like customer validation phase, and when you're validating through, your business ideas, you don't really have a product to pitch, right? You're just pitching through a presentation. And then during that process, we were coming up with different names, right? So there's so many different names, like, one was like super long. It was like make exit counts, like how do you conduct an interview, right? But then you think about it, right? What we're trying to measure is the entire journey of your employees, of your patients and whatnot, right? So it's really retain, and I think like the Retainify, that was like Shopify, and it was like so popular, and it's kind of like marketing, right? So how do I steal from other people's like organizations and say, you know what, I think that name is going to resonate with people, right? And then when we did the customer validation, it really resonated with people because they remember, I was like, oh yeah, I remember it's Retainify, right?
So you got positive feedback.
And they became our early adopters and became our customers, right? So I think the branding, just everything just kind of worked together in the end. It just worked out for us.
So Anu, STEM Minds is a tech education program. Again, getting back to core goals and how you wanted to do things differently. How does that motivate you, and how are you seeing that play out?
So STEM Minds is a B Corp certified business, so I've made a choice to be for-profit for social impact. So I'm really proud of that achievement because it's allowed me to build a sustainable business that can continue its mission, and which is about empowering children to become next generation of future leaders. And for me, it's about looking at making sure kids learn how to learn. We're moving in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknowns. So you really can't say if you build this skill, you'll be ready, or that skill. It's truly about being agile and learning as technology around us changes, economies change, being adaptable to it and learn. So how do you do that when you're a child? You can only do that by making a habit of learning being fun. whether it be coding, robotics, game design, film and photography, wherever your passion lies, if you take that as a place of learning, you will always find connections to learn and keep learning for lifelong learning. So that's the vision, the lens that we've taken at STEM Minds. So we want kids to be excited about learning from wherever their place of passion is. If you're a young girl who enjoys fashion, well, start with, creative designing, move into 2D design, 3D design, animation, then you can go into wearable tech, and suddenly you've taken someone who enjoyed creative elements and now doing coding with wearable tech. So it's kind of weaving and connecting the dots in this realm of the fourth industrial revolution, which is very technology driven, and finding those connections for our youth. But there's also a very important part of this equation, which is the teachers. No education is going to be complete without keeping our educators and teachers part of their learning cycle. So our mission is, as much as it's about exciting kids about learning, it's also supporting our teachers to make sure that they are empowered to be able to teach these skills in the classroom. A lot of kids go to public schools, and I strongly believe that our teachers need to be supported to be imparting that knowledge in that setting so that parents don't have to always look for skills outside the school system. So that's with the mission and lens that I'm working with, and I'm super excited that, since launching the business, we've impacted 40,000 children.
40,000?
Yes, we have. Both public schools and a private center, and that's what puts a smile on my face. I've seen kids who came with an idea, simple passion, and they've evolved to this experience that they are now comfortable learning. To me, that's the win. We've seen amazing teachers who have never taught coding and now teaching video game design in their classroom because their kids in the classroom want that. To me, all of these are the wins, and that's where I'm excited about, that the mission that we started as a mom wanting to solve a problem for my son, that we found a solution that resonates with kids, it resonates with teachers, and that's where that's where we're going. And my goal is, in the next 3 years, I would like to reach 6 million kids regardless of geographic boundaries, social, economic, it doesn't matter. To me, STEM education needs to be for every child, no matter where they are, where they live. It's not meant for only because you're good in maths and science you need to do it. Everybody needs to do it. It's as simple as healthy living, physical exercise. STEM education needs to be part of this regular DNA of every child as we move into this new world where everything is going to be technology driven. So that's where the lens I've taken, and I'm super excited about the possibilities of where we're going to go from here.
I get it. I don't you feel excited? I kind of want to get involved somehow, because that was not around when we were growing up. Yep. So you've tapped into something that we didn't recognize that we needed, but clearly it's made a big difference.
Yep. Yep.
So when we talk about growing, and of course we all want that sustainable growth, we have to start at the early days. So Yvonne, go back to when you were first beginning and how you have the confidence now and the know-how to keep that trajectory on the up and up.
Yeah, I think it's just constant failing, like in the very beginning, where because when you're building a company, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes, right? In the very beginning, right? But I think these mistakes, right, it boosts your confidence for some reason, right? Like every time you make mistakes and you're like, okay, well, I just learned something new. So it's kind of like, I really love your idea when, you want kids to learn, and it really resonates with me because back in my corporate days, we used to run a lot of training programs, right? And you want to keep people engaged, right? And if they make a mistake on something, you don't want them to feel demotivated. So you want to give people that platform to fail. So as we go through that growth journey, when we are building the product or working with the clients, right? You're going to fail, but how do you take that learning and continue to grow and make that an exciting opportunity for you and for your future clients? So I think that really helped boost up my confidence over time. And now it's like you just create that platform for yourself to fail and to learn, and then there's no really failing, it's really just all learning in the end.
Fatima, how do you continue to grow?
I feel like a lot of it is, and completely loving Yvonne's answer as well, there's definitely a lot of failing, and I think that it's something that one needs to learn about the startup world and about starting the company, because you don't know so many things. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to open a business bank account. Like, I didn't know if it was different or anything like this. I didn't know how to do taxes. I remember like all of those questions. And I think that one of the best things that I've done for me and for our business was to surround ourselves with people who actually knew those things, people who've done those things, and we in a way do it within the Tech Undivided. I know that we're going to be talking a little bit more about it later, but I think the communities are so key in answering questions, in helping you go a little further, or even brainstorming for each other and with each other. I think that it's never been, for me, I've never seen the community as important as I see it now, because of all of those difficulties and because of all of these things that I know that, like, anytime I have a question, I can call anyone, there's so many people I know I can call, and they would tell me, okay, this is the person you talk to now, this is the person you talk to after that. And like, did you, by the way, think about this as well? And I think that this is something that keeps me going in terms of like how to grow and everything else. This is what opens new introductions, new channels, brings new clients, starts off new ideas in terms of, oh, like these are all those opportunities. And all you need to is to go meet someone and be both impactful for their lives and also have them impact yours.
I love that idea of community. One of you said, I can't remember, I was reading all of your bios. Which one of you talked about how isolating it can be to be an entrepreneur?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
So
I think we all did.
We all kind of touched on that. How lonely it can be.
Yeah. Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so Anu, you have to go back to the beginning just briefly and talk to us about sort of that scaling for sustainable growth and how you keep at it.
So for me, this definitely, I totally echo with everything everyone's saying. You know, you do have to learn to make mistakes and evolve. You know, the product that I built, I started with in 2016, is not the product that I'm running today. So it's an evolution. Yeah. So it is about learning and listening to your clients and evolving the product so that it keeps meeting their needs. So that feedback loop was very critical in building a sustainable business. But for me, it was also making big, bold decisions in every phase of my journey. So, you know, from moving from renting a room in a Montessori school to going to a co-working space was a very small jump. From there, going to getting a lease was a much bigger jump. And then once I opened up my learning center in 2018, deciding that I wanted to build an online learning platform for global scale was a much bigger jump for me. So in each of these phases, I think it's important to make those big, bold decisions to grow a business and be confident in those choices, that once you make that choice, you don't look back, you go forward with it. And that's been very important for me, to not second guess myself and say, should I, would I? No. Made a choice, I'm moving forward with it, and I'm comfortable with it. So that's been, you know, my story from, you know, starting in a small co-working space to now having a 3,500 square foot, you know, state-of-the-art learning center plus an online learning platform that's making STEM education accessible globally. So it's all those baby steps you take to get to that stage, and you keep growing.
Tech Undivided, let's talk about that program. A lot of women entrepreneurs talk about the lack of access to resources and funding. And so this program with Tech Undivided helps to bridge the gaps. And it's a ventureLAB initiative that creates a support ecosystem for women to thrive. It's competitive. I'd like each of you to tell us what kind of support or access you were seeking, and how did you convey that in trying to get their help? Yvonne, I'm going to start with you on that one.
Yeah, and it really came at the right time, because in our cohort, when we first started, we went with a big bang, go live. We were the first cohort, and then 2 weeks later, the pandemic hit, right? So then we had to move everything to online, and fortunately, we got to meet everybody before the pandemic hit, and everybody had to go remote. Now, you can imagine, that was the time where last year we had all these big plans, like everything to do with scaling your business, all these crazy marketing stuff, and then suddenly, you're kind of stuck, right? You're like, okay, well, everyone is stuck, actually. Nobody knows what's the next step. They didn't plan for this, right? Nobody planned for the pandemic, right? So then having Tech Undivided during that time was super helpful, because I couldn't feel even, like it was so exhausting and lonely during that first part of that year. Mm-hmm. You're trying to build a business, and then, but everyone's is offline. And I was in the space of HR, right? Mm-hmm. And HR in every corporate organization, they're all struggling, right? So they're trying to figure out, how do they best, accommodate their employees. There were a lot of layoffs, right? But that's also our targeted customers as well, right? But then I was so happy that I was in the program at the right time, because I felt like there was a community of women leaders and founders. We were so vulnerable with each other. Like every time we experienced like some hardships, we're struggling through something. Even though we were connecting with each other remotely, I got my wine session with Karen every now and then, right? So there are these sessions that you can connect with other female founders online that they have your back, and you feel like no one is being left behind, and ventureLAB just created that community for us. And then also giving us like resources, advisors. I mean, everybody's trying to navigate through the pandemic, but then you've got so many people, and if you don't know something, you know that someone in ventureLAB you can reach out to and have a conversation about your needs.
Fatima?
And it's so funny because Yvonne looked at me, and Karen Wong, who I believe is watching this right now, of Tech Labs, and we also do a lot of wine nights together, actually planning one as of this week too. And I think that this is exactly it. This is where Tech Undivided, Anu and I started a little bit later. We were the second cohort after Yvonne and Karen, who we're talking about right now, wrapped theirs up. And I think for me, one of the most incredible things about it was actually this exact thing. It was that even like Karen, even though we weren't in the same cohort, I reached out because she was in retail tech and I'm in retail tech, and it was just like, there are things that we need to talk about. And this is what's incredible about that, and what actually Tech Undivided as what we were seeking as well. Like we were seeking that better sense of community, people who we can reach out to, who can help us solve these problems, who can, or like even just talk you through it. Like often talking about the problem helps you understand how to solve it better. We were, in general, even though we weren't part of the Tech Undivided, I very much relate to the feeling lost at the beginning of the pandemic. And that was around the same time as we were also submitting our applications. So like having the interviews and having to talk about how we've been dealing with this now and how much we would love some help to continue dealing with this as things are obviously evolving, as things are growing, and we're actually managing to somehow persevere. And I think that was one of the best aspects of the program as well. And for us, it was the same as, once again, was how Yvonne was mentioning. I have like some concrete examples of if we needed some funding help. There's, for example, people who used to work at those funding agencies. So they actually know the funders, they know people there, they can introduce you to someone there, and they can also tell you exactly how it works. They can tell you these are the types of things that you want to be emphasizing, for example, in your applications when you're getting money. These are the things that you need to be talking about with them when they actually call you and ask you about these things. And this is exactly who these people are. So if you want to feel more comfortable and prepare for those conversations, you know who they are. And I think that was such a comforting feeling in general. Like one of the most recent ones that we had was just like today with one of the funders, and I had probably 3 sessions with our advisor at ventureLAB, and some other people at ventureLAB who they introduced us to in order to talk about this, to prepare for that conversation. And I think that this conversation went as well as it could, and it was definitely thanks to Heather, who's our advisor, and the ventureLAB and Tech Undivided team as well.
What has been your experience with Tech Undivided?
It's been unbelievable. So just like everybody else, when COVID hit, we started selling our online platform and virtual live classes beyond my community in New York region to Ontario and nationally in Canada. We started getting users from US and other places. And being a community business to become a global business is very different. And I was at that space. I didn't have a network at a global level. I didn't know how I would reach that audience. I knew I wanted to grow my platform as well. I knew I needed more funding, how to do it. So for me, I was getting into that unknown zone again where I didn't know enough and I needed help. And Tech Undivided was the saving grace when it came. It came at the perfect timing for me. I was struggling with my pitch when I would talk to people about the business because it seemed too convoluted. In my mind, it was very simple, but obviously I wasn't explaining it well. So having work coming into the Tech Undivided program, I got great advisors who not only just helped me with my pitch and unbundle my business to a level of simplicity that I could talk to people was very powerful. Being able to understand that what an investor raise actually means and the choices I will have that I need to be comfortable with. The language, like I didn't understand half the language for investor raising, and Fatima would tell you, asking everybody, what does this actually mean? I don't know. So it was the power of, the ecosystem that ventureLAB did create for us with advisors, with our founders meetup where we would talk about our challenges, and just as a cohort where we could leverage each other's experiences because we were all going through very similar experiences. And I found for me, I was beyond the stage of lesson 101. I didn't need that. I needed more complex guidance that was catered to my need. And I think ventureLAB very beautifully provided that. And today I feel so confident and comfortable, and I am pitching right now, and my pitch is so much better than it was in September when I compare my decks. It's night and day, so it feels really good, and I feel like the support was great. All the elements they have built in that ecosystem are very relevant to entrepreneurs, and I'm grateful that I was in the program, and I met great people to kind of build relationships that I know will last for a very long time.
This community, this Women of Influence community, learns a lot from other people's down moments. I won't call them failures, but I'm sure you've all had them. So can you each share an experience or a moment where you thought, uh-oh, what am I going to do? Is this the end? Where am I going to go from here? And how you learned and grew from that? Who wants to go first?
I can go first, yeah. So for me, when I moved from a corporate career into entrepreneurship, it was a very lonely start for me. And I say that because when I was in the business world, my entire network was around my work. I had no personal branding. I had nothing. I moved from a financial vertical to an education vertical. And it was very difficult at that moment to find someone to talk to. And I remember I made my first call to York Small Business Enterprise Center saying, I have this idea, I want to do something, where do I start? And that was a journey of building my community. And that's where now I have so much respect for communities and what they can do for individuals that I have carried that lesson, that learning from that early stage to this day, and going forward as well, that communities play a very big role in your journeys. And I'm grateful that I was able to build one from that place of loneliness to now, just like Fatima said, you can knock on doors, you can talk to people, and not feel like you're the only one out there with that problem.
Okay, Fatima.
I think for us the biggest problem and the biggest, I guess, it was probably COVID, because we are, I'm not sure how old is Retinify, but we're definitely much younger than STEM Minds. We started the business late 2019, which is when I decided to quit my job and decided not to look for one anymore. And I thought that everything was going great, like as great as it could be. Like we've been lining up some consulting work because we decided to bootstrap to pay for our product software development and things like this, because consulting is something very close to heart, and we've done it for so long. And I've done it for so long, and so did most of the people in my team actually as well. So we were lining up contracts, and then suddenly COVID hits. And suddenly, all of these contracts start falling apart because my expertise is retail, and I've worked in retail for so long. And then, obviously, like retail stores closing down. Some of our, we were supposed to work with some of the bigger luxury brands in Europe as well at the time, and it was just like they were all closed down because the lockdown in Europe was even worse than here at the time, and the situation was worse there overall a year ago. And it was scary. It was, I think, for around a week or two, I was just sitting there and I was thinking, do I need a job? Like, do I need to call my recruiter friends? Do I need to call my network and tell them that I need a job? And everyone is losing jobs too. So I was just like, can I even get a job now? And that was like a very like nervous like laughter that I actually probably had like every single moment that week or two, until I decided to put myself back together and like doing it like step by step. We did manage to, like, some of those projects that were canceled actually returned. So like we managed to get some money. We've gotten, and at around the same time as that happened, we started finding out about all of those government fundings and like hiring incentives and things like this. And it was also something completely new that I didn't know anything about, and I just sat into it on a few info sessions. And at some point, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna apply. I'll find students who are gonna apply. And we did. We found students, we applied, we used everything that wasn't covered by the government funding with the money that we earned from consulting to cover the salaries. I didn't take any money back then, which was also scary and very difficult at the time, because everything that we earned went back into the business. And I think that was just a very toughening experience, if I can probably call it this way.
No, that's
just
a great story. What do you think it was that kept you hanging on?
I think I did truly believe that I've got some, both like probably grit and also the knowledge that I believed had value in the marketplace. Because whenever we talked to, like, we did sell those projects. They were canceled, but we did sell them because people were interested. And I did believe that no matter what happens, like, it's not like retail industry is going to disappear. Mm-hmm. So I think those two very optimistic beliefs at the time were what helped me like get out of that, like, and look for those opportunities, look at all of the funding opportunities, look at all of those, start basically calling up everyone I knew if they needed a consulting project, like any project, just like retail, no retail, that's fine, we'll still do it, and things like this, because I did have experience previously in banking and many other industries as well, thanks to my both consulting and investment banking experience in the past. And I think like all of this was just like, I felt like it's also, I saw how difficult it was for everyone else around, and I knew that it was difficult, so it was like this, I guess, shared experience.
Mm-hmm. Makes it a little bit easier in a weird kind of way.
In a very weird way, yes.
Yeah.
You're just like, you know what, like, I can get a job. I can get a job a little later if I need a job. Like, let me just focus on the business. And that's what, like, I sort of told myself, and I'm glad I did.
Yvonne, can you relate to anything
I
that
think,
she's
like,
saying?
yes, and it's COVID, but I think if I have to dig deeper, like this will be like, if this is something I have to share with like any, new entrepreneurs, right? Think about your first breakup, right? So it's heartbreaking. So for me, it was when I had to break up with my first customer. For me, that was really hard, right? Like, it was like, okay, what did we do wrong in Retainify? What did I do wrong as the founder? Why did my customer break up with us, right? Like, we weren't good enough, we're not perfect, so all these things were just like, you go back into your first breakup with your boyfriend and say, okay, it was me, I was the problem, it was like, went through that. I thought that for me was harder. Like COVID, it was really hard, it was challenging, but it gave me that motivation to like, I'm just gonna persevere. Like you said, I'm gonna keep fighting. I know I have a good business idea. I know things are going well. I know that things will go up from here, right? But that first breakup, it resonated with me for a long period of time, probably for the first like 1.5 years, where I was so worried about like doing the wrong thing that my customer would break up with me, right? Until one of my second early adopters, and she's pretty funny. She's like, Yvonne, you know what? When you talk about your startup experience, right, and your first breakup, I think your first customer, they were your first, like, that first customer was like your first date. We are your first love. And we're still here, right? And they've been, pretty phenomenal, right, in supporting, Retainify and through the pandemic, right? And you get some really great customers where, like, Paul from Elliston, he's just been amazing. He's been phenomenal. He picked up the phone and he called me, 2 weeks or 3 weeks into COVID, and then I pick up the call and I say, hey, what can I do for you, Paul? And he was like, no, I'm calling to check on you, and I want you to know that we will be paying our bills, right? Like that moment, I bawled and I just started crying, right? So like, you know, you've got your down times, but then I think just keep thinking about, if you know that this is what you want to do and you know that you've got a great business idea, think about all the positives, right? And those are kind of the things that will continue to motivate you through, no matter how lonely the journeys is, right? And you always have really great people. And I got to meet the other cohort, right? Face to face, not virtually, so.
But as I said, it's a long-term view on the business, right? You all believe in your products and ideas, and you know, COVID hopefully will just be a blip in the journeys of our lives, because we believe in what we're all doing.
100%.
We know that we're going to get over this and we'll be back stronger than ever before, so.
It's hard to believe that we're in the second year of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you be able to identify one good thing from COVID? Something that's been good for your business?
I think we moved into a new vertical. So journeying, again, right, when you kind of, I knew what you were saying earlier, you know, you hit bumps and you have to make those like big executive decision, right? So we made a big decision to continue to support, you know, we believe what we do with Retainify on the employee side, but then, you know, with the long-term care, and then you think about, you know, what was happening in the industry and healthcare in general, and you're like, okay, we're really religiously surveying and asking, doing check-ins with customers about the products. We're now picking up this for the employees in businesses. Why aren't we checking in frequently before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and after the pandemic, right? So it opened up a new vertical for us to get into the long-term care, the senior care, the retirement communities, the home health care space. So I would say like that was one good thing that came out of it, because you also don't have time to think, right? It's like you do it or you don't, right? So we decided to like jump into the fire, and it worked out for us.
Annie?
Yeah, so for us as well, you know, when we had built our online learning platform in 2019 and we were trying to get tested in the market wasn't ready for online learning. COVID came, and overnight, I mean, I lost a lot of revenue overnight, but also overnight, I gained a lot of customers who were ready for online learning. Platform took off, so for me, just like...
and they were finding you?
Well, we were reaching out to them, but also we had built a loyal client base who knew we've always been there for our community. They were confident and comfortable with us. Like, our summer was more busier this last year than ever before.
Really?
Between virtual camps, in-person camps, you know, workshops for schools, we've really had a very good year. And in that sense, from that perspective, our online offering now is a brand new vertical that will always be there, because the market has evolved to accept online learning. Teachers have learned to accept virtual workshops in their classroom. So we are now constantly in that mode. We are evolving our product and making sure from an online learning world, we're now meeting the needs of the client. My hope is when post-COVID, we will have in-person classes, live classes, and an online learning platform. So I think COVID has really given that platform for new verticals, new lenses to look in your businesses and take advantage of what the market is asking you for. And being able to pivot and offer that is a great place to be.
I think for us, retail is, I love retail as an industry. I chose to be in retail as much as possible. It's actually, I think for people who've done consulting in Canada, they know that it's not a common industry to be in. Like a lot of people, I think the majority of people are in banking just because this is where the money is at and this is where all the big companies are. And for me, I was always fascinated by retail industry because I thought that it was so interesting and there's so much of this customer behavior and there's actual choice. So people make these decisions knowingly about their shopping and about where they do, how they do it, and things like this. But innovation sometimes takes a while to come to retail industry as a whole, and that's what a lot of people know who work with retail companies as well, because something that if it still works and it doesn't break, and I think that what COVID did is that it broke everything, and then for retailers, and there was a big change in understanding that things cannot be going the way they were going, and that there's this thing that I feel like everyone always talked about omni-channel a few years ago, and COVID made it that you can't not talk about omni-channel anymore. You can't not talk about how your online experiences and in-store experiences mix in together, because you need something that looks at both. You need something, as a retailer, you need something that looks at both. You need something that helps you understand behavior through all of the channels and how you actually personalize it when you don't have the access suddenly to what, for the majority of retailers, is the biggest channel. The majority of retailers, like despite online, before COVID, online shopping was growing every year, year over year, at fantastic rates. But when you think about it, it was like people would be saying, oh, like our online grew by 500%, but it would still be like 2% of their revenue. And that would be 2 to 5. 5 would be for like really good ones, and like 1 or so it would be like at most of the brands. And then suddenly, when you don't do this anymore, what do you do? And I think that gave a lot of retailers realization that they need something there, that the communications, when everyone started receiving, and it's so personable, right? Like we all started receiving in the beginning of pandemics hundreds and hundreds of emails from retailers a day, because they didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, and so many of them were closing.
Yeah.
Exactly, and like and everyone was getting those emails because suddenly everyone started panicking. They're like, well, I can't get to my like customers otherwise, so I'll send them an email. But the problem is that when you're one of the 500, 400 other stores that are sending an email at the same time about the same thing, your email is not very likely to be read. What makes or breaks those things are the personalizations and are the data that comes behind it and things like this. And I think for us that was a big pivotal moment, because despite all the bad things, and that maybe it stalled and maybe we were waiting for some of them to figure out all of those things. We had to postpone our launch because of the second lockdown and things like this, because the retailers were busy figuring out how they're going to be doing online Black Friday, and like how to do logistics to get the presents by Christmas and things like this. But I think that we also at the same time benefited from this, because there were so many more people who realized that this can't just wait, this needs to be done.
So what do you see as the future of retail? What does it look like?
That's an exciting question, because I feel like I can talk about it for a long time. I do believe that I think the future of retail is being able to have all of these seamless experiences. When whether you looked at something online and came into the store and tried it on, having all of those seamless experiences in terms of the shipping, the logistics, the sustainability of all of it as well, because we need to care about our planet and the environment and all of these things. And how do you create all of that for the customer so that it brings the best experiences to them, and at the same time it does it in a very safe and sustainable way.
What do you see in the future for your company post-pandemic?
Well, the relationship between an employer and employee will continue to change. I mean, it's during this very difficult time where your employees are looking at the employers to see what actions they've done to look after their employees and their employees.
A lot of people feel disconnected
100%.
from their employers.
Yeah, and you know, like for the longest time, you know, how we were always following the footsteps of the tech giants, right? So, Google has ping pong tables, right? Everyone loves open concept office, right? Well, when COVID hit, open concept office is not the great idea when you spend millions of dollars of like renovating your office space, right? So I think every employer will go down a different path, and kind of where you know we kind of pop in, right? Because our software is built to really capture the different culture of every organization. So we don't have like a cookie cutter approach in how we measure employee engagement, you know, the company culture. Like what we want every organization to look at is look at your data, right? When your employees tells you your organization is amazing, why are you amazing? It's not because what you have adopted from Google or what you have adopted from Microsoft, right? Is what did you uniquely build for yourself, right? So I think that relationship will continue to change, where every organization will start going down the path of not following cookie cutter approach, but you know, really be uniquely you as an organization, and how do you attract talents that you know, love what you do and what your culture stands for, versus everybody wants to work in an environment like the Google of the world.
I'm just throwing this out there. Do you think people will go back to the office?
So in the very beginning, I think we went through to like this one extreme, right? So when COVID hit, you know, you got all these companies, including Facebook, Shopify, everybody was making some form of arrangement, right? And that, you know, we can be 100% remote, because now we realize that we've got the technology and we can set this up. And actually it's cheaper to keep employees out of the office than in the office, even if we have to subsidize their, you know, their office setup, right? But through our survey data, so over the course of last year, we've been running a lot of employee engagement surveys, and we've been surveying employees throughout the entire COVID times, right? We asked them, you know, would you like to return to the office? And it really depends on the stages and, you know, the life stages you're in, right? If you have young children, it's not that you want to go 100% remote. I think there should be, and based on what we're seeing in the data, is a balance between a hybrid model. So there are employees, the younger population, it's interesting because, you know, I get to see all the data, we do aggregate reports, right? And the younger generation would be like, well, I'll never make friends, I'll never meet a girlfriend, because I don't get to see people, meet people at work, and then you meet, you know, your
social circle.
Exactly, right? So the younger population, actually, they do want to be in the office. They do want to have the flexibility to work from home if they have to. And then even for parents, it's not that they want to be remote 100%. There are a portion of those, that population wants to be remote 100%, depending on the age of their children, right? But there are a population there that says, you know, I want the employer, right? The employers to be more flexible. So instead of saying like, you've got to be in the office Monday to Friday from 9 to 5:30, right? We're saying, you know what? We trust our employees to go and manage their own time. If you have to step away and take your kids to school or to a dentist appointment, you shouldn't feel like you have to ask for permission, right? So I think that's, you know, kind of where the future is going. And also, that's also the expectation of talent, right? They're not going to work for an organization that you know, are in the traditional or kind of old school thinking where everybody is bum in seat in order for me to see that you are contributing to the success of the organization. There's so many different ways. So.
Super interesting. Okay, future for you.
So I'm super excited about the future of where we're going to go as an organization. So there are three parts to it. One, I'm excited about new markets, you know, going outside Canada to US, Asia, new markets where our product is a really good fit. So I'm excited about being in new places and expanding our reach. The second thing I'm excited about is our product. You know, we started as a very basic online learning platform, but we've brought in so much of sophistication but validation in it, in the sense that our online learning platform is very research based. This means how we teach kids, how we engage with them is actually very research focused, so we know it's going to work. So I'm really excited about keep building the product so that we are always evolving how we work with kids and engage them in sustainable learning. So it's just not, you know, stop now, we're done. You know, I'm looking forward to kids spending 5-10 years of their learning journey with us. So I'm excited about how the product will keep evolving, listening to their voices, and meeting their needs as they go from 4 years old to 7 to 10 to 14. And that's an exciting place to be. And the third part is real growth and balance in empowering our teachers. I really want to be in a world where every child has STEM education, but every teacher out there, whether you're teaching arts or social studies or English, you are comfortable teaching kids new STEM skills from the comfort of your own place and your own classroom. So that empowerment, you know, once we hit that mass, it would just feel like that, the sense of, the sense of satisfaction that you started something and you truly, truly made an impact in the lives of children and teachers and as a society as a whole. So to me, that's what's exciting about where STEM Minds can go next.
Excellent. We've got a few minutes left, so we leave this for the fun stuff. Not that this hasn't been fun so far, but a little bit of rapid fire Q&A. Oh, Fatima, this is funny. We're going to start with you. What's the last thing you bought online?
Groceries, and they're being delivered tonight right after this.
Okay, Yvonne, what will we always find in your fridge?
Ketchup.
Really?
Yeah, ketchup.
Will it last forever?
Yeah, but I love ketchup on everything.
Oh, you love it too?
Yeah, and ketchup on pasta. Like, I know it's gross, but pasta ketchup is like the best. Garnish it with a little bit of onions on top, like green onions. It's amazing.
Really? Okay.
Try it.
Anu, on that note, what's your go-to weeknight dinner?
Swiss chalet. I love my barbecue chicken.
Okay, I did not see any of these answers. Yvonne, what would you say is your best good habit?
Exercise, I guess, like exercising every
really
day,
good.
get on my Peloton.
Fatima, what's your bad habit?
I think I overthink things sometimes.
And I'm going to ask each of you this. Anu, if you had an extra hour in your day, how would you spend it?
I would love to go for a walk.
Okay, do you make that time for yourself?
I do try, at least after dinner, for a half an hour, walk along the block, no matter how cold it is. Being inside all day long, it's just exhausting. So just having that fresh air to breathe and go for a walk is very meditating for me.
Extra hour, how would you use it?
Cook.
Okay.
I love cooking. It's meditating for me too, but like on the priorities when there's like between the working out and everything else that I need to do and all the responsibilities, cooking often comes last. And I do feel like very special for myself if I, made the extra fancy meal from one of my favorite chefs' cookbooks, and I have so many at home as well, and I just love it.
Okay.
I would actually cook every day.
Really? We'll have to remember that for our next get-together. Yvonne?
Sleep. That's like my favorite hobby.
Okay.
Sleeping is like a hobby for me.
Do you have a personal motto or mantra?
I do. It's about fearless learning is lifelong learning.
Fearless learning is lifelong. Oh, okay. Yvonne?
It's so hard because there's so many things that, depending on the stages you're in or the mindset you're in. But I mean, I think everyone should try entrepreneurship once in a lifetime, and I think every woman should try entrepreneurship once in their lifetime.
Awesome.
For me, the last 3 or 4 years, it's probably been I would tell myself, every time I'm stressed out or anxious, I work out. So I either go for a run, I go to the gym to do the weights, I do lots of other different, I love working out as well, and I do a ton of different things. I'm very active as a person, and for me, that's if I feel stuck, if I feel anxious, if I feel stressed out, I need to do that, and it sort of opens up my mind, and I feel both better and usually have ideas on how to solve the problem that I was anxious before that.
Okay. Do you each have a personal hero?
My personal hero is Indra Nuri. I really admire her as a CEO, what she's done as a corporate career, and everything she's doing now as an ex-CEO. I love her journey, so I really look forward to the team.
I feel like I have so many. I know it's silly. I do, but I think that it's just almost everyone in my family. When they did things and they lived through times where it was difficult, and they lived through my family, some of the people in my family lived through the Second World War. They lived through the crisis. They were originally from the Soviet Union, and they saw that collapse, and they saw all of their money basically gone away with the crisis and everything else, and they saw so many of those during their lifetimes, and every single time they found a way to persevere, stand up, and find something else to do. And
it's in your DNA.
And I really, really admire them for what they've done for us, for me, for my brother, for my grandparents, for my parents, and things like this. And I do really find them to be all of them my heroes.
Not because my husband is watching, but it's definitely my husband. I mean, I'm sorry, I've been a grumpy monster for some time because of COVID, but it's really hard when you're building a business and your partner needs to be there to support you 100%, so it would be my husband.
That's also good advice too. Find a partner that will support you. Okay, this is my question. What's the first thing you're going to do once this is all over, after COVID?
I would love to travel. I've been missing travel.
Yep.
Same. I'm traveling.
See my parents.
Yes. Okay. You guys have been amazing. We have all learned so much from this conversation, so I thank you very, very much. We appreciate you being candid with us and fascinating, and we do have some questions, I believe, from the audience that we're going to start with. What technology of the future are you most excited about? Anu?
I truly believe AI has a role to play. And I think we're all going to see that integrated in many facets of our life, hopefully for the good. And that's what I think, that we're going to see that disruption in many industries.
I'm very excited for quantum computing. I think that we need that to solve the problems that we have. I think that it will help us get places faster. So the more research goes into it, the more funding goes into it. Every time I see it, even though I'm not in that industry, I get like very excited, being like, ha, yes, they'll solve our problems too. Like,
robots. So, I mean, like it's you think about the aging population. I think it's like, it was an article I read, it was like in Japan or something like that, right? Like, you know, who's going to look after the seniors, right? Robots, right? Like, I don't know, that's a great idea, but you'd be interested to see like where that takes us, as we're using robotics to help us to do a lot of things today, right? So, yeah.
Okay. What is the one trait you believe an entrepreneur needs to succeed?
You gotta persevere. Like, you've gotta be really, you've gotta not beat yourself up, you gotta persevere. Grit and perseverance.
Okay.
I can't think of a better answer, to be honest, because I think that's exactly the theme of everything that we've talked about today as well, about the times when things weren't so great, and you make lemonade out of that, and you make sure that like whenever one path closes, another opens. Whenever one door closes, another opens, and it's just something that you have to find that next door.
Yeah.
It is grit and courage.
And courage. Okay. What tools or resources did you use to confirm that your idea was truly unique?
I think for me it was a lot of market validation, is actually working with customers and making sure they were giving you feedback which was honest and candid, that it actually met the needs they were looking for. And so I think customer feedback loop is very critical to know if you're actually doing something the way the client's expecting.
Okay.
So I guess I don't really think that ideas are unique, to be honest. Like, I think that everyone has ideas, and I think that a lot of those ideas can be the same, actually. I think it's all about the execution and the uniqueness of how you execute it, how you talk to your clients, for example, and incorporate their feedback, how you build everything. That's what makes or breaks an entrepreneur and a startup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I second what you just said, Fatima. Like, I think it's not, there's definitely, you know, really cool ideas, right? Everybody's looking for the next like unicorn tech startup, right? But I think when you've got so many different vendors building something similar, but there are nuances to each of the platform, and you're going to attract a different market, right? And execution is definitely a key differentiator as well, your business model. So yeah, I think all that comes into play.
You know, I have an interesting fact about this. Like, the multi-touch tablets were first made at the University of Toronto in their computer science and engineering labs in, I believe, 1999. And they never ever became popular. And then a few companies actually tried to make them before iPads came around. But then it was the execution of Steve Jobs. It was not a new idea. It was not at all a new patent or in any way. It was exactly the brilliant execution, the brilliant marketing that came with Steve Jobs that made all of us use tablets now. Who doesn't have one?
Well, Anu, Fatima, and Yvonne, again, I want to thank you so much for sharing so much of yourselves and your time tonight. I think we all learned something, and you have been absolutely incredibly honest and candid. And I want to thank everyone at home for joining us, or wherever you are. And if you are an all-access ticket holder, we invite you now to join one of the Women of Influence breakout rooms to connect with other guests. You are going to find those under the networking tab on the left-hand side of your screen, under the call-in groups. Again, if you have any trouble, don't ask me. Just send your message to the help desk. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our presenting venue partner, Fairmont Royal York. We're so glad that we were able to be here tonight. And we're going to check in with all of you. Maybe in a year or so, and we'll see how we're doing. So thank you so much, everyone.
Have a great night. Thank you so much for having us.